Hey there, history enthusiasts and curious souls. Ever heard of a war where the soldiers weren't fighting other humans, but rather feathery, flightless birds? No, this isn't a plot twist from a whimsical fantasy novel. It's a fascinating chapter from Australia's very own history, the legendary Emu War. Whether you're a history buff or just someone who enjoys the quirkier tales that our world has to offer, this episode is bound to entertain, inform, and perhaps make you see emus and history in a whole new light. So hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and let's embark on a journey back in time to experience a war like no other. A war where feathers clashed with steel and gave us an unforgettable story. Today, on Histories Untold, Emu War, Australia's feathered fiasco unplucked. Ah, the vast landscapes of Australia, home to extraordinary wildlife, breathtaking scenery, and the iconic Opera House. Yet buried in the annals of history is a peculiar, almost whimsical episode that unfolded amidst the dusty plains of Western Australia. Imagine, if you will, soldiers armed with machine guns, not facing an enemy army or rebelling citizens, but emus. Yes, you heard it right, emus. These flightless birds, known more for their awkward charm than their combat skills, unwittingly found themselves as the protagonists in the so-called Emu War. It was the early 1930s, and the world was mired in the Great Depression. Australia, a young nation struggling to find its feet, was hit hard. Australian veterans of the First World War were given land to cultivate, in areas like the Campion district in Western Australia. These brave men were no strangers to adversity, but what they didn't anticipate was an onslaught by emus in search of food and water. Enter the emus, stage left. These large, flightless birds had just completed their annual migration. They found the cultivated lands a veritable buffet, much to the dismay of the farmers. These birds, it turns out, were voracious eaters and were effectively ruining the crops. What could be done? The farmers, many of whom were battle-hardened veterans, requested the government for ammunition, believing that their own firearms would suffice to handle the problem. But then, the government had another idea. In what seemed like a logical solution, the government agreed to send the military. This wasn't just about managing bird populations. It was also a way to demonstrate that the government could protect its people and their livelihoods. The operation would be led by Major G.P.W. Meredith, armed with 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. The mission, to reduce the emu population, thereby saving the crops. Simple, right? Ah, but nature has a way of laughing in the face of human arrogance. So, in November 1932, the soldiers set out, convinced of their imminent victory. What could possibly go wrong? Well, plenty. The first operation saw the soldiers trying to herd the emus into a suitable area for a clear line of fire. It was quickly discovered that emus, awkward as they may seem, are remarkably fast runners. To make matters worse, their loose flocking structure meant that they were difficult to target. The machine guns roared, but only a dozen or so emus were felled. The rest scattered, mocking their human adversaries with their very ability to remain upright. Frustration set in, but the soldiers persevered. Major Meredith devised new strategies. One involved mounting a machine gun on the back of a truck to chase down the nimble birds. But the terrain was against them. The vehicle couldn't keep pace on the uneven ground. Rounds were wasted, and emus continued to roam freely, perhaps even more emboldened by their unexpected survival. As days turned into weeks, the soldiers realized that their feathered foes were not to be underestimated. These birds had developed tactics of their own, with lookouts warning the flock of approaching danger. It was as if the emus had become aware of the stakes and decided they would not go down without a fight. After 6 weeks and 9,860 rounds of ammunition spent, Major Meredith had to admit defeat. Only about 1,000 emus had been killed, and the impact on the population was negligible. The Emu War had ended, not with a bang, but with a squawk. Though it may sound like a farce, the Emu War is a lesson in humility. It taught us that in our quest to control the environment, we often underestimate the resilience and adaptability of nature. Major Meredith himself expressed a grudging respect for his feathered foes, likening their ability to withstand bullets to that of armored tanks. The Emu War has since taken its place in the quirky corners of history books, often cited as an example of a military campaign gone hilariously wrong. But at its core, it is a story that highlights the unpredictability of life, the strength of community, be it human or emu, and the endless surprises that nature has up its sleeve. Today, the emus still roam the lands of Australia, blissfully unaware of their status as war veterans. Meanwhile, Australians look back at the episode with a sense of irony and self-deprecating humor, celebrating the strangeness that adds color to our shared history. So the next time you see an emu, don't underestimate it. These birds are survivors, veterans of a war they never asked for but won nonetheless. Their awkward gait and curious eyes serve as a humble reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary stories come from the most unexpected places. And that, dear viewer, is the marvelous, almost unbelievable tale of Australia's Emu War, a story where feathers clashed with steel, challenging our very notions of victory and defeat. The emus didn't just survive, they won their right to roam the lands that have been their home long before the first plow tore through the soil. In the end, it wasn't just a war, it was a lesson we would all do well to remember. See you next time, here on Histories Untold.